Everybody, thank y'all for tuning in once again. Want to make sure that you all know that we have a website that is going to be coming out, drunkuncleradio.com. Easy as that. Look it up, type it up, press the enter button, see what you find. If you're on your phone, use your thumbs, then type the enter button. It'll pop right up. That's us. Please help us. This is hard. Please.
Ladies and gentlemen.
I thought you locked up, you motherfucker. I was like, oh, John, get an Ethernet cable, motherfucker.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, and cousins of all ages, welcome to Drunk Uncle Radio here on Junkdrummer TV. I am your host for the night. I am Drunkle John. Joining me as always are Drunkles Steve, Jimmy, and Adam. Tonight we are delving face first into one of the episodes that we have been really looking forward to because we're all kind of nerds. And tonight you are getting a full deep dive into iconic musical instruments and gear. So, boys, gentlemen, uncles, welcome back. Nice to see you. How are you doing? Steve-O, how you doing?
What's happening, fellas? Man, it's good to see you all. I think that last episode was probably my favorite. And if you haven't watched that yet, that is our Rush extravaganza where Adam spills the beans and you get to hear Adam fucking singing so good. I always forget how good. The first time I heard Adam sing, it was back when me and Jimmy was running that fucking open mic night at that Blue Club. And Adam, and it was right when Rush did that cover record. And I think you got up and I think you did Sunshine of Your Love. Does that sound right?
It was either that one or I know I played with you. I played Crossroads.
Maybe that was it. And like, I always knew you were a good bass player. I was like, what the fuck is happening on stage right now? Like, Adam is destroying this shit.
The first time I heard Adam sing was at a cover Broadway gig we did downtown. And I didn't really know he was going to sing or could sing. He was just playing bass. And we stood up, we were doing an Orbison tune. I can't remember what it was. It was one of the big powerful ones. And I'm standing back there like chopping some rhythm guitar. And Adam steps up to the mic and opens his mouth and the heavenly angels pour out. And I'm like, what the fuck? This guy's sandbagging like a bastard.
Sandbagging, motherfucker.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for
I remember
sure.
what we were playing, John. It was Only the Lonely.
I was going to say Only the
one.
Lonely, but I didn't think that was, I thought my mind was betraying me. Yeah, I do remember that. That was the first time I played with, I think that was the first time I played here with you and with Misters Lieb and Parky. Yeah.
Yeah.
Drunkle Jim, how you doing over there at the King Tut Drive-In?
Oh, doing pretty good. Getting ready to get me a barbecue sandwich and a chocolate milkshake.
Well, from the sign behind you, it seems to say that you can get a fried chicken liver pizza.
Oh,
Well, I guess you could. It's fried chicken livers and then pizza.
oh, okay. Whew.
Anyway, no matter what, you're getting gout.
Yes. No matter what, you're getting gout. Oh, my Lord.
The king's
man.
disease.
No, it's the gout.
The gout. Getting the gout. And probably the sugar.
Oh yeah, that's hand in hand.
The sugar diabetes.
Oh, man.
And Drunkle Adam, how do things go in your corner of East Nashville?
It's all right. There's a lot of gunshots, but that's normal.
Do you get used to that? Does that just kind of blends in with the horns honking?
So John and I both own Ring doorbells, right? John? Yeah. And for those of you that have those, you know that there's a little kind of a social network within it where, you know, it's like a neighborhood watch. So anybody's around you is like, hey, I just, you know, some guy was like trying to look through my car or something, but it's every night. somebody over in East Nashville was like, "Did anybody just hear like 4 gunshots?" I was like, "Yeah, I was just getting ready for bed."
So it's like Waze for Ring.
For Ring doorbell, it totally is, and man, it runs the full gamut from like really good actionable information that you can use to your advantage to just like the worst racist Karens on the planet.
I was about to say, there's some mamas on there. Like, there's 2 kids out there, they got hoodies on.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man.
Exactly.
Like, I saw a dog. It looked like it was mean.
When we were still over in East and we were on one of those neighborhood watch groups, it was always just terrible. I couldn't even. I quit. I couldn't read them anymore. They'd be like, "I saw a man in a hoodie walk by my house." It's like, okay, yeah, it's cold out.
It's fucking January, dude.
Yeah.
When I lived in West Nashville, we had next door like it would be like the biggest controversy of the year. Like all the Karens and other soccer moms commenting on. Somebody saying like, "I can't believe the gall of some people walking through our alley with their dogs and they throw away their poop in our trash can." And I'm like, it's a trash can.
Isn't that better than throw it in your fucking yard?
Are you taking inventory of your trash can?
It's not like it's not in a bag. If I was just like taking a dump in her fucking trash, that's one thing. But like,
which probably happens in West Nashville, right?
Kind of makes me want to do it, but
I loved it too. We get these ones that'd be like, "Does anybody know somebody that can fix the hole in my fence or mow my lawn?" It's like, "Yeah, you do it. It ain't hard."
There's no enterprising teenagers that's got a sign up.
No enterprising Karens, I guess.
So, gentlemen, we are gathered once more to celebrate the almighty instrument, the almighty gear. Now, for our audience following along at home, we had to really rein it in. We started talking about the format for this episode and what we were going to try and cover and how, the depth and breadth of everything. And then we suddenly realized that we were talking about the framework of a 9 to 12 hour episode. And we just figured, we want to give you the all killer and no filler. And well, 9 hours is tough for anybody. So,
man, when you all started whipping out those acronyms, I was like, "Oh shit, fellas." John's like, "Well, we may need to talk about the Neve console, the silk button." That's, the silk button. If you're in the recording studio world, that is iconic. If
the differences between API transformers and Neve transformers, how they're wound, how they're counterwound, the number of taps.
The TS8 as opposed to the TS9.
That's right. You're doing real good here, Steve. I'm proud.
How many guitar players I've fucking lived with, and they were all jam band guys. So of course they had 2 fucking TS9s because Trey does.
And now our listener and viewership looks like the ladies' restroom line at a Rush show.
Just people who've went to NAMM is now still watching.
Hey, look, at least there's still some ladies there.
There we go. We'll have Alicia. She'll watch. She'll be the one. She plays bass.
All of that to say, we decided to narrow it down to things that you might have a fucking chance of recognizing. And that is the drum set, because that is an iconic instrument around the world that I believe pretty much coalesced here in America.
It is an American instrument
as an art form and as a codified unit.
Ooh, let's talk about that.
And we're going to talk about the guitar.
Jimmy, where did the guitar originate?
Well, I mean, you could go way back. I mean, lute and pre-lute. I guess the guitar as we know it is mostly Spanish.
Right.
It derives from Spanish, but I mean, before the guitar, there were lutes. There were all kind, like I was saying, there were all kind of crazy stuff that had been around for a couple hundred years prior to that, and then even earlier. I guess it's like, how far back do you want to go? Who's the first guy that took a piece of gut or something and put it on a stick with some cat drum around it, and
Jack White,
ding ding ding, exactly, made their first Jack White guitar back in the
nail and a steel wire on a plank of board.
Oh, that's such a good part of that movie. What is that called? It Might Get Loud.
It Might Get Loud.
Oh, it's fucking wonderful.
So drums, some guitar, and then we are going to finish with three of the drunkles, no matter what instrument you may see them be performing on at any given moment when we assume our alter ego slate dump. Three of us, and Steve, you're an honorary bass player. You own a bass.
I play bass from time to time.
You do. So I would very confidently say that all four of the drunkles are bass players.
Well, I can tell you that bass is my second favorite instrument behind drums. I love basses.
Great. And so it's a great place for us to end and really bring the whole point home with all of our hearts and passions engaged.
Jimmy, where did the electric bass, when did that start?
Well, that's kind of up to debate too. I mean, Gibson had I can't remember what it was, that very, very first one was called. I guess the EB1 or whatever it was, or the EBO, that not the EBO, but that one that's like violin shaped. Mm-hmm. That was in the early. That was pre-Fender. That was like late 49 or early 50s. EBO? Yeah, it might have been the EBO, and then or the EB. It might have just been called the EB. But then before,
so did it look like a Hofner?
Kind of, yeah, like a solid body Hofner. But then before that, there were pickups that they were starting to do for upright basses, so you could kind of get as like, is that the first electric bass? Is it Ampeg was started because that whole company, the Ampeg, was a peg that you would put in an upright bass that had a pickup in it and could be ran into an amplifier to make it louder. Because back in the old days, all they could do was like take a microphone and usually wrap a towel around it or something and stuff it in the bridge, or just stick one for the bass, or the bass just didn't get one. It just wasn't very loud.
You just had to pull really, really hard.
Yeah, like in those 50s records, they'd usually like just stand them in the corner where they could get like a low end trap, and they would just stand them in there and have them play over there and stick a mic over there to get as much as they could, because it's just not a lot you could do.
Could you imagine shaking one of those dudes' hands?
Oh, man.
It's like getting a hand job from a violin player.
All those
coal miners
are pulling like it's a fucking Tom and Jerry cartoon.
Like my old wrestling coaches just like squeeze tennis balls all day, you know.
It'll give you a strong wrist. It might give you a carpal tunnel as well.
Do you both, because I don't know if Adam plays stand-up, but you two do. Do you all still have your like stand-up chops? Because they're different, right? Stand-up chops are a lot different than electric bass chops, right?
Yeah, mine would, I'd probably be all right for about 30 minutes, and then I'd start hurting and fall apart just because I don't do it that much.
I hear you.
I currently have mine in shape. I've been playing a lot of upright, a lot of bluegrass recently, and yeah, it took 2 weeks. It took 2 weeks of playing every day before the cramps went away, and I got the callus. I'm just now starting to really get the
calluses. Because the calluses are different, right?
They are, because when you're playing upright bass versus electric, you can get away with using mainly the sort of the tip and the meat of your finger right there. When you're playing upright, and especially when you're playing upright acoustically with no reinforcement, you're using all the way down. You're coming all the way across the string like that. And the same with your middle finger. So you're getting all of this area, or all of this area and all of this area. And it really, the place I get the biggest callus is right there, right on the tip of my middle finger, just from all the secondary stuff. It doesn't get pulled as much as the index finger. So.
I hear you.
And sorry.
No, go ahead, Adam.
My entire experience playing upright, it's just sounding as much like a cartoon elephant, like falling down the stairs, out of tunes, and I'm not, I can't do
it's magic, man. Fretless. It's having been in a band with a violinist for 6.5 years. It's magic. Shit without frets is magical. I don't fucking get it, dude. Yeah. It's black magic, right?
I can play a fretless electric all day, but when it comes to an upright, I suck. I cannot do it.
Even the original banjos, they were fretless, and when you hear that old, like when you hear like that old timey hill stuff, and you hear the claw hammer, and they play it like on the fretless banjo, it all makes like way more sense. It's so much more evocative and so much more like haunty and cool,
woody.
Oh yeah,
it's more. I mean, it's got more. When you have no frets, you have so much more room for expression.
Yeah, it gets much more rural and all.
I really like when Abigail Washburn plays that fretless. Claw hammer style. It's really good.
Yeah, when the banjos started shipping with frets and stuff like into the hills, well, because we get into that. It's an African instrument anyway, the banjar, and It was originally made out of gourds with cat skin on them or goat skin, but then by the time they started making the ones that had frets in them and sending them into the Appalachian Mountains, those people had no idea what the frets were for, and they thought it was for shipping, like to keep the neck safe. So they just take files and just file them out.
They were doing Jocko before Jocko.
Oh yeah,
that's great.
So you can still find them every now and again. You'll come across this, like, you could tell it was actually like real hillbilly owned if the frets were all filed off and it's still the original.
Maybe that's how they actually invented boat epoxy.
So I want to kick this off with a query to all of you, because we're talking about iconic instruments. This is us really digging into the stuff that inspires us. And so I want to know, and this is our first installment from the clipboard. I want to know, what do you think when you think of iconic gear, Stephen?
Oh, man, I'm a drummer, and there's a black pit bull setting right there named Bonham, and it's John Bonham. It's the most, there's not that many iconic drum sets, and it's the amber Vista lights. A lot of people don't know that he never recorded with those amber Vista lights. He always recorded with, early, it was the maple, it was a maple kit, same setup, 26, 14, 16, 18, 6.5 inch superphonic snare drum. But his recording kits were always a green sparkle kit, which if you have a lot of money, you can buy one of those now, because Ludwig is cashing in on Bonham on all fronts. And you have the maple that he recorded with, and then the green sparkle that he always recorded with. So it's the amber, but also because he's it's so hard to say, but because he's my favorite drummer, probably he's my favorite drummer. If you had a gun to my head, I would say Tony Williams, and it's the Tony Williams yellow Gretsch. It's just when you see it, like, if you notice, and I want to talk about that later too, about like performing on iconic instruments, especially ones that are so unique. Like if you see a drummer playing a yellow Gretsch, that motherfucker better be coming with it. You know what I mean? Like this dude is playing the Tony set. That's the Tony set. You know what I'm saying? So it's that, and Neil, the Neil Counterparts drum set, which was bluish purpley with gold hardware, which I don't like gold hardware, and we're going to bitch at each other, or you're all going to bitch at me about gold hardware.
Nope, I'm on board with you.
Already did.
I hate it. I fucking hate gold hardware and shit, man. I think it looks gaudy. I think it looks gaudy as hell.
There's a couple of applications, and most of the time it just don't work.
Jimmy's about to bury me here in a minute, but those are my three: is Tony Williams yellow Gretsch, John Bonham's amber Vista lights, and I had a Vista light drum set, and they're fantastic. I wish I still had that. And Neil's Counterparts tour set. I had that poster up in my bedroom.
That is the major criterion, the poster on the wall.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Mr. Jones, what does an iconic instrument mean to you? Or what do you think of when you think of iconic?
When you talk about an iconic instrument, it's something I can remember starting as a kid when I started getting interested in playing stuff. And when I heard somebody play that really cool thing, and I was wondering what it is, and the time came that I was able to look it up and see who and what it was, it was like, oh, it's that thing. That thing made that really cool sound.
Can I kind of guess?
Yeah.
Chris Squire's Rickenbacker.
No.
Fuck.
First thing I ever looked up was like, what? It was Jimmy Page playing the double neck EDS 1275 Gibson with his bow. That was like that whole thing when the song remains the same, and I was mesmerized by it. But then I think that kind of started my whole geek nerdom, and the instruments that people play are as iconic as the people who play them, 100%. And gear is everything.
Oh God, I'm such a gear nerd.
Oh, there's 4 of us in here. We are. If you're not a gear nerd, stick around. We'll make you one. I promise.
Yes.
Jimbo, Mr. Jimmy Lykens. What's your iconic gear like first recollection? I like that, Adam. Talking about what like caught your ear and your eye first.
I have to think. I think the first thing, I mean, growing up as it did, either the first ones that caught my eye that I can remember kind of specifically were either Earl Scruggs's 1930 Granada banjo, or probably like George Jones's D41 Martin.
Nice.
It would just be what I'd see on TV. You know, we always had like TNN going, but
Was that the one that had the big, the like oversized pick guard?
or D42, beg your pardon. No, that was the one that the D42s are like the D45s, except they don't have the perloid around all the way around the neck. Yeah, otherwise, they're pretty, and usually the blocks, the inlays are a tiny bit smaller. But to me, like an iconic instrument is. It's when like this, it's kind of piggyback on what Adam said, but the instrument and the player are sort of inseparable. And you don't even have to be a music fan. You could just look at the instrument and you know who played it and maybe what they played it on, but you know who it was that was with it. And it's almost like another living thing. It becomes bigger than the player themselves because, hopefully it could live on past that person as some of these that we're going to talk about.
Jimmy, I remember us going to see the Police on the reunion tour, and Sting coming out with the Sting bass. Like, what is that bass? It's a Telecaster bass.
51.
50,
yeah.
It's a 50. I don't know if his is a 51.
The one that's just beat the hell.
I think his is like a 54 or 55, but it's that 51 style. But yeah, it's beat all to bejesus. And I mean, he used a lot of different basses, but that's the one you always think of when you think of Sting.
And he had it, and he brought it out when we saw him in Cleveland, and we were all just like, "That's the Sting bass." It's, that could just. I always think of like iconic instruments as ones that can just be setting on stage. You know who the fuck is coming.
Yes,
exactly.
yes.
You know what I mean? And if you saw that bass, you're like, "Oh, I'm going to hear fucking Walking on the Moon today."
And you don't have to know anything about whatever it is. You could just be a Police fan. You could see that thing and know whose it is and what it is. You may not even know that it's a bass or something. You're like, oh, there's that guitar, But
yeah, how many non-musicians call it the Angus Young guitar?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
A couple of photographers.
Yeah, for sure. John, what do you think of when I say an iconic instrument and you think that person that matches that instrument?
The
John Mayer PRS Strat.
It's cute. It's nice.
It just don't look right, man. Those Strats with any other headstock, they just look like abominations. I'm sure they're fantastic instruments.
PRS has made single coil guitars in the past, but like if I'm fucking buying a PRS, if I'm going to buy a Stratocaster, I'll either buy a Stratocaster or buy like a Nash or something, some boutique Strat builder. Yeah, Sewer, something like that. No, it's beautiful. I'm sure it's an amazing guitar. I've never played one, so this is not a diss by any means, but that's not my thing. No, it's funny. I was trying to think of like the first iconic instrument combo that I saw on stage that really caught my eye. And I could talk about Dave Grohl's drums or, the Gibson versus Fender duel in Pearl Jam of the early 90s when Stone was on one. I can't remember who was who. Stone was on one and Mike was on the other. But for me, this kind of sucks because the instrument is incredibly iconic as far as like what it's lended to music in general, but the player is not someone that you like associate with this instrument. I got obsessed with Paige McConnell's Hammond and Leslie in Fish when I was like 19, 18 years old. And that thing, and I totally stand by my initial reaction because the Hammond organ and the Leslie speaker cabinet are iconic. They are on there. It's a side piece for sure. It's not usually, unless it's an organ trio or a jazz record, it's not really out front, but it's on every recording that you love. 85 to 90% of them have a Hammond organ on them, and it is just, and the spatial effect and the Doppler effect from the Leslie speaker going along with it just really, really blew my mind. So
how many times have you said page side?
I mean, I don't know. I was always really high and in the field somewhere. So I was never a side person fishing. I was really I was
out of a balloon.
like if fish concerts were Reddit, I was a lurker, man. I didn't post at all. I wasn't. I didn't do any of that stuff. So, but no, that's what. It's funny in the build up to this episode, which I am like oddly the host of, I realized that I've paid so much more attention to the instruments rather than the players over the years, and sort of have been kind of obsessed with the minutia. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing you three rant about all of the people and the significance of the way that they use these instruments. It's gonna be really fucking cool. So we decided we're going to start with drums. Drunkle fans, we figured that this is first and foremost a drum channel. Shout out Junkdrummer TV. And so why would we not lead off on our strongest foot, drums? We have a list that we have put together of 3.5 drum sets that we're going to review. I say that because one of them is really just in there for fun. But I'm going to lead off strong and go with the old one. Go ahead, Adam. You got an idea there.
Let's tell them how we narrowed this down. So we had like an initial list for the 3 categories: drums, guitars, bass, that we all had to vote into, and then we whittled it down to the top X amount out of this giant list, right? So we recognize that there's like a shit ton of iconic instruments, and we can never get to them all.
You have one right behind you.
You do.
I do.
You do.
That's my favorite. Man, we got to talk about that because I think it's my favorite bass. The last band I was in, me and the bass player, because if you watch my other stuff on this channel, you know I talk about bass players almost as much as I do drummers. And we wanted one in the band, but they're so goddamn. We were at last time we went down there to Nashville and hung out with you all and played. I almost had him talked into it. I was like, we were at what's that little like Granny's or something?
Fanny's.
Yeah. We were in there, and they had. Have you all seen the black murdered out Rickenbackers?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Love them.
Sexy. And I almost had him, dude. He had the bread, and I was like, James. I ended up playing with bass players with name to start with J. I was like, dude, we gotta have that in the band. That's your bass, bro. We gotta do it. Those murdered out Ricks are sexy as shit, man. They're cool. They're super cool.
I always like those in the
tuxedos.
Yeah. I like
What's that? Oh, is that the black and white?
I like the ones that are like all white too. I had like the white fretboards and then the binding.
That was it. It was
Who played one of those?
The binding had the black.
I don't know if anybody was famous for playing one.
Okay.
It's kind of like a
very 70 tuxedo.
The most famous
tuxedo.
all white bass I can think of is Larry Graham's Moon.
Yes. Oh my God. I can't wait to talk about bass.
With gold hardware.
So if we're talking about drums, Adam Jones, tell me your all-time favorite Neil Peart drum set.
There's like a top 2. My top one is the first one that I ever remember looking up.
The red Tama?
No, it was the 2112 Slingerland Chromie kit that he used from Fly By Night all the way up through Farewell to Kings. And but then after that it was the red Tama kit, because there was that really cool photo shoot of him on the little dock at Lake Perry, which was behind the List Studio in Morin Heights, Quebec, that I actually went to.
Nice.
Because I was in the area, and that was kind of a pilgrimage. It was List Studio was abandoned and had been vandalized, but like you could still kind of look through one of the main windows into the live room where they recorded all those records, and did most of their videos in there too. It's like, oh my God.
Is that where the Tom Stand Still video is done?
No, that's where all the Tom Sawyer and Limelight and all that stuff. But I think Time Stands Still, that was just in like a big green room studio.
Still my all-time favorite Rush video.
A lot of floating
Amy
around.
Mann.
Why are you floating around, bro? Jimmy, do you have a favorite Neil drum set?
Yeah, the Hold Your Fire kit.
Ooh,
Pink
man.
Pink with gold hardware.
Fuck yeah. Hell, dude, he's the only guy I like that has it. That pink shit's cool as fuck, man.
It was like the Mary Kay Cadillac color.
Mary Kay.
Yeah, very
100%
Yeah.
just like
pearl,
Pink.
kind of creamy pink.
cloud pink.
Yeah.
Wow, I have not seen the red or the pink drum set before. That is I just looked up the lake shot. That you got to make sure you get that in there. You will. That is you mentioned floating around on a lake playing drums.
I'm so mad I didn't pick the Hold Your Fire kit. That is fucking dope. That is a dope ass drum set. So John, from your magic clipboard, what all you got there, Bubba?
So we just talked about Neil's 2112 Chromies, those Slingerlands. I mean, obviously, we talked a little bit in the opener there. You were talking about Bonham's Vista Lights. Now, you say he didn't record those, and
Nope.
I know how to play drums. I've owned a couple drum sets over the course of
John's
my life.
actually a fantastic drummer, everybody.
But I'm not I'm a guitar and bass and keyboard nerd and studio nerd. I'm not a drum nerd. What's the difference between, why would he not record the Vista Lights?
Man, they're just a goddamn loud, they're uncontrolled. They're like a wild horse, man. If like I had a red, black, and green striped one, which made me, I was in a jam band. It looked like I should play in a fucking,
that's amazing.
reggae man, I wish I had it still. I had to sell it to get the premieres that I have now. They're wonderful, loud, sounding boards for whatever the drum head you have, because you don't have any of the wood affecting the sound. It's fucking plastic, right? And that's another thing that pisses me off. And I'm glad I got this fucking platform. How is a plastic drum set more than a wooden drum set? It's made by molds. Like, you have to do so much more shit to get a piece of wood round. You know what I mean? And those acrylics
it's the same reason racing spec Porsches and stuff cost more than the ones that actually have back seats in them. They rip the back seats on all. Now it's lighter and more expensive.
Yeah, why? They're plastic. It's acrylic. They should be so much cheaper.
Maybe the reason
crazy
is
expensive.
John Bonham.
That's it, man. That's it. And man, I will definitely want to get into that. Like, what do you all think about playing? We'll get into all these other instruments, like playing like a fretless jazz bass that looks like the bass of doom. And I know we're skipping ahead. What do you all think about that? I don't need that kind of pressure. I play in a stoner metal band, and that scene has a lot of cats that play 26-inch bass, fucking 14-inch, 16, 18. And lots of them play either like the chrome, the straight up chrome set, which is what Bonham had at the end, was the last drum set he played. It was just those things are so heavy and they're just loud. And they're like a wild horse. They're a mess of overtones.
Bringing a bullhorn into a nursery.
Dude, it is. I once played a gig where the band before me had an acrylic, had the Bonham kit. They had a Bonham kit, and I was playing with a female low volume. I was playing with Sasha, right? And they were like, "Oh, we're going to share drums." I was like, I can't do this. Like, when you play a 26-inch acrylic bass drum, piano doesn't exist. Mezzo piano is a rumor. Like, you have to dig the fuck in to make that shit sound good. And that's why they sound good, because if you have a good touch and you dig in, that's how you get that Bonham sound. They're just, man, one day I'll have one. I'm going to come down there and let you try to record one, because they're a mess, but they're great. It's a big, loud, awesome sound. The thing about Bonham too, though, is his cymbals are fucking iconic. Like Pasty 2002s, 15-inch hats. Was it a 24 ride? 18, 19, 20, heavy as hell. You can buy those too. I think the Pasty 2002 Bonham kit or cymbal setup is like fucking couple grand. You know what I mean? It's but that's superphonic, man. You know what else is another iconic drum? It's the fucking Neil Peart Radio King snare drum.
Yeah.
Like, how did he ever not record with that?
I think whenever he started getting everything from DW, it was all DW.
But that is one of the most recorded drums. Like, that's the thing that he played the whole time.
Up until Test for Echo.
Right. So, I mean, that's super iconic.
And it was the unfancy one too, right? It was like,
just white.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just straight white. And if you don't know, the cool thing about the Radio Kings is they're not very environmentally friendly because they were just a fucking log that they hollowed out. So it's not steam bent, layers.
Yeah.
It's just they found a log that was big enough, that was round enough, and they hollowed that shit out. And that's one of the reasons that they sound so good and they're so collectible.
Sure, there's no fiber damage or anything from any sort of manipulation. That's wild. I did not know that.
Woodworking 101, John Cavendish, get them.
It's funny you mentioned that. A quick tangent here. We have a Gibson viola here. Gibson made a very small amount of stringed instruments. They made a bunch of basses. And
is it electric?
No, it's an old acoustic instrument.
Okay.
This was like 1940 in that era, like right before and during the early parts of the war. They made a bunch of basses, upright basses, and they made a bunch of violins, but they only made like 40 to 100 cellos and violas. And we've got one here that the entire side is one chunk of wood. It was hollowed out. It's the same way you're talking about the snare drum. Yeah, it's pretty wild. We took it to the luthier when we got it to get it set up and looked over, and there's no seam. It's a whole thing. So that's what a very unsustainable method as far as your supply goes. But God dang, does the thing sound good?
I was gonna say, can you tell a difference in the sound?
Well, it's a smaller, yes, for sure. It's there. It's a bit smaller than it's a 15, not a 16-inch viola, so it's a little quieter and it doesn't have the big bottom end of a larger one. But no, I think it makes a difference. Yeah.
What other drums you got on that clipboard?
So clipboard. Well, the only one that we haven't really talked about that is possibly it's not the most iconic to drummers, but it might be the most iconic to the general population. Is Ringo Starr's Ludwig's.
The drum set that made everybody want to play drums. That's the drum set, because that, like, how many times that our heroes, you read an interview and they say, I wanted to be a musician. Dude, Ozzy Osbourne became a musician because of Ed Sullivan. Like, people, like, that's his favorite band is the fucking Beatles. That Black Marine Pearl Ludwig, man.
Do you remember there was a video, I think a couple of years ago for Ringo's birthday? They had all these, big people like Dave Grohl and a whole bunch of other drummers talking about the influence of Ringo's kit in itself. They were all sitting there playing at it and how, even though he kind of gets a bad rap, like he's got.
I'm not hearing it from those motherfuckers, man. I'll fucking jump on your table with my boots on. I'm not hearing it from that at all. But, that being said, Paul McCartney probably played some of the best drum tracks. Because Paul McCartney is the drummer on Come
Together.
Yeah, that's him.
Or is it Bernard Purdy?
Dude, man, don't get me started, Jimmy. Don't get me started.
Dun.
I was there. I was at that clinic, man. I was at the clinic where Bernard Purdy was just like, look, fellas, I got the pay stubs. I played on some of that shit. And man, motherfuckers were leaving. They were like, I'm not hearing it. I'm fucking out of here.
It's like whenever I went to a Lewis Black show one time and at the old field house in Huntington, right? Yeah, remember we went to that Lewis Black show. Yeah, and then he started making, talking about fossils and stuff, and people just couldn't. They didn't want to hear about fossils. They got up and left.
No shit.
Oh yeah, they're like, no, Lord made this shit.
Oh, it was like
they got up out of there.
Jimmy and I were like up, even though it was just a tiny, shitty field house, and like the walls were basically all black mold. That's what it was constructed from.
Still had like some of Hal Greer's.
It's a female
around up there.
It's a female soccer. It's a female soccer stadium now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we were like up near the top, and all these people down front were like, "Oh my god!" and just exited. We're like, what the fuck just happened?
The last Alice in Chains record, maybe not the last one, but one of the last ones with the new singer who's phenomenal, is called "The Devil Put the Dinosaurs' Bones Here."
Yeah,
is that what it's called? It's something like that. I might get that wrong.
The devil put dinosaurs here.
Yeah, that's it. Or fossils. Yeah. Yeah, man. That's the one. That's the one that we wouldn't have a bunch. Man, I fight with. Shout out Tony. I love you, but you're fucking wrong, man. I fight with Tony because he fucking hates Beatles. He does that thing. Anyway, everybody has one. We had one in my last band. We called him the Millennial Falcon, and he was just just being that dude. You know what I mean? He's just being that guy. I'm like, man, that's fine. You can say you don't like the Beatles, but everybody you listen to does love Ozzy Osbourne's favorite band is the fucking Beatles. You know what I mean? Like metal wouldn't have happened if the Beatles wouldn't have made him. For real? Yeah, I mean, of course. Yeah, all those British cats from that age did, man. I'm not fucking hearing that. That's a big thing that's going on like these days, just contrarian fucking millennials. Like, I don't get it, Beatles. Man, shut up.
I hate that. I hate that shit too. They're like, yeah, Beatles or Stones. It's like both. Kiss my ass. I don't.
Yeah, but thank you.
I don't know anything to you to answer your question at your level. I'm gonna answer it the way I want to, and I say both.
Jimmy, do you remember the session that we did for a singer-songwriter? Shout out Jeff, where like we got all these demos, right? And we were supposed to be like good little studio cats and learn the parts. Yes. And yeah, I drove up separately from you in Voldemort, and I was listening to my little demos. And we got up there, and Jimmy and Voldemort's just like, we don't know any of these fucking songs, so we just started listening to the White Album. We listened to that
White Album over and over again. I think we listened to Abbey Road like once all the way.
Yeah. So we show up at this session. They don't know none of the tunes, and of course they killed it. But yeah, like fuck it, man. We'll listen to the White Album instead.
It was just preparing me for Nashville. Showed the session. You don't know any of the songs.
That session did go swimmingly. I definitely remember being like, man, maybe we should all be listening to the White Album before we go in the studio. Like they're fucking killing. Like I got the charts, and these guys are killing it.
I remember the only reason that recession ran long was because somebody brought this like upright bass, and I think it was like an old Epiphone or something. They brought it, and like the D string was just about like falling off the thing. And I had to like sit there and just like massage it into being playable for like an hour. And it just ate up so much time. And it was just about to just totally forego it and just be like, fuck this, let's just use a P bass or something. But then I was like, I didn't bring a P bass because I thought we were doing it upright. As a young man, the lessons I didn't learn yet. always bring a P bass.
Was that you had the Music Man, right?
Well, I had the Music Man at the time, and I had that white P bass at the time.
Okay. So yeah, man, like I think that's pretty much, drums. It's hard to have like if you really want to go insider, maybe the most recorded drum set is Steve Gadd's Black Recording Customs. The recording. Yeah, Yamaha Recording Customs. No, that's later. No, I'm pretty sure they're maple. Okay. They're so iconic that Steely Dan once called up Steve Gadd's like, hey, we want your drum set. And they brought Cartage up to, I'm sure it's downtown New York. And they picked up the drum set, and Steve's like, I guess I got a session. So he goes down to where Steely Dan's recording, and another motherfucker's playing his drum set. And they were like, we want you, but we're not on this track. We just wanted your drum set. That's the most Steely Dan fucking story I can think of.
No shit ever, especially in the drumming world. Good Lord, that's amazing.
Funny. It's funny. It kind of reminds me of this Chet Atkins story where he had this guitar he'd just gotten, and he was playing it, and he's playing it for, I don't remember who it was else in the story, but he's playing it for him, and he sets it down against a chair or something, and I'm like, man, that guitar sure sounds great. And he goes, how's the fucker sound now?
Oh, wow.
Guitar, nothing.
He has one of my favorite quotes that I've used. And I'm going to get it wrong, and I'm sure Jimmy knows it, the right one. But it's I can read, but not enough to fuck up my playing.
Yeah, I could only paraphrase it too, but it was like I can read enough to not be bad or something.
Yeah, but not enough to fuck up my shit. Yeah. But yeah, those are your most iconic drums.
I feel like if you get if you try to go one level beneath those, it gets so wide and
then it gets real wonky.
It's
and
just
it gets
so
real
hard to
wonky.
call at that point. Then all of your 80s drummers start coming in. All your
Alex Van Halen. That's one. That's a big one. The fucking 4 bass drums. I don't know if they were octabands. They wouldn't have been octabands because that's a Tama product, but he's a Ludwig player. But it was like he had all the rototoms and remember Adam, he had the pipes that connected the bass drums. That's a real iconic one. Like if you see that setup, you're like,
it was like
oh, that's fucking Alex Van Halen.
Giant speaker.
It was.
Yeah.
That's it. Those, I think, pretty much, okay, Buddy Rich's White Marine Pearls.
Of course.
Now, here's something that a lot of people don't know. He played 1 up, 2 down, but it was a 12 or 13 and a 16 and a 16. That 16 was only to put drinks and a towel on. The last one that was over here, he never played it. That's where he put, that was basically a fucking table for him.
A lot of drinks.
A lot of drinks for sure. So yeah, that's pretty much, that sums up the drums, man. Anyone that has other iconic drums, please. Okay, Tool fans. We know what yes. Obviously the Sonar pasty melted down drum set is iconic. Go ahead, obviously. But if you all in the comment section have any other iconic drums that you want to talk about, please hit us up with those.
So we're back to the clipboard. Let's move on to what may be the most widespread one of the most widespread instruments on the face of the planet, and that is the guitar. We have a few more on our list for this than we did for drums, just because, well,
it's a guitar, man. It's fucking everybody plays guitar. You throw a rock and you fucking hit a guitar player.
It's guitar. So I'm just gonna, in no particular order, I'm gonna start with the first one on our list, and that is Jimi Hendrix's Stratocaster.
Of course.
Jimbo, what can you tell me about Jimi Hendrix's Stratocaster?
I mean, I like it.
It's just nice.
Nice. I mean, that's another one of those guitars. The Monterey Strat. You see it. You see the paint job. You know what show it is. You know what it sounds like. What song he was playing it on. It's been redone, a couple times. It's just one of those a guitar that's famous really for a singular moment.
Sure, of what it signifies.
For what it signified in one moment in time.
Yeah.
Very
you know that Zappa has one of the other guitars that he set on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And Dweezil now has it and plays it. Now, it's not the one that got caught on fire at Monterey.
No. Jimmy gave it to Frank, right? And then Frank.
No, here's, dude, I actually know the provenance of this. And if Zappa freaks are out there, please check my work. Frank had the same guitar tech as Jimmy. And it's a guy named H. His name was H. And H, I somehow ended up with it and gave it to Frank. And if you know anything about Frank, he didn't like a lot of things. Frank hated more things than he liked, I think is the easiest way to put that. But one thing that he did love, and he did love Steely Dan too, although he made fun of him in concert, was Jimmy. He loved Jimi Hendrix, and he cured that guitar, and that guitar still exists. That's something we got to talk about, is like these iconic instruments of people who are no longer with us, and making sure that they don't end up under glass. Because I think we all agree,
it's the worst.
It's the fucking, my Uncle Mike.
Oh, God.
He couldn't stand. Jimmy, do you remember we played that gig with one of Greg Allman's sons, and his bass player had one of, what's his name?
Barry Oakley.
Barry Oakley.
Oh, dude, we do you remember that, Jim?
Yeah,
he was like, I've got a Barry Oakley, and he picked it up and put it on, and I'd never seen Barry Oakley play it, but we all had that like, oh shit, that's a Barry Oakley jazz. Was it jazz?
Yeah.
Like that's a Barry Oakley jazz bass that was given to him by Dickie Betts.
Yeah, because Barry, like he played a few, but he had that one that everybody always remembers is the rosewood neck with the blocks, which you don't see a lot of.
And I just remember all of us just being like, even Voldemort was just like, oh shit, that's a fucking. And remember the bass player said that Dickie was just like, he's like, that bass will do things to you. Like that bass, he's like, that bass has got some shit in it. Like, you play this, there's some mojo in that bass.
I mean, that Monterey Strat, that kind of goes back into talking about, we've talked about it a couple of times, like the Bing Crosby thing and all that. Like Hendrix was one of those guys. It's hard with our modern ears to think about what a total mind fuck Jimi Hendrix had to have been at the time. You'd talk to older guys. They were like, man, first time I heard it, I had no idea what was happening. Like
Clapton was going to quit.
Yeah, well, he walked off stage. Hendrix came
on.
I can't remember what song they played. It's just showing how much like I have no idea about. But Hendrix came up on stage and they're like, hey, you can jam with us, because he was big in England at the time, or getting bigger in the guitar scene. And he picked one of the Cream songs that like Eric didn't like to do because it was really, really difficult. So he didn't like to do it live. Like he really struggled with it in the studio. And then they got it done and he wanted to do it live. And then they're like, so then this guy's like, okay, let's do it. And Eric didn't really want to, but he went ahead and did it. And Hendrix is doing it and then improvising on it and then like humping the guitar while doing it and doing all his Hendrix stuff and like going crazy and doing wild stuff and doing variations on themes of the song. And they said Eric just like took his guitar and just took it off and just walked. And that was the feeling was, people in the crowd were just like, God died. Just then they thought God was mortal. God is dead.
I don't remember what documentary it was, and I can't remember if it was Jack Bruce. It was probably Ginger Baker. It was like they said something like, or talk about the history of things, and then it was like, oh, and then Eric Clapton became a deity.
Yeah, well,
that was when it became like Clapton is God.
I believe it was like Clapton even talked about it. It was like kind of after that where he started focusing a lot more on his songwriting. He had that realization. He's like, this American dude. He comes over, and all of a sudden, this is a whole different ballgame.
What's the quote about Muddy Waters coming to Britain or coming to England and talking about the blues guys? Do you know it?
I have no idea.
It's either Muddy Waters or it's one of those cats. And he went, it's got to be Muddy Waters or maybe Howlin' Wolf. And he goes over to Britain, goes to England and does a tour. And I'm pretty sure like it was with the Stones. It was like one of those bands, like first wave. And he came back and he said, yeah, the English, they want to play blues badly. And that's the way they do it. Badly. And dude, that brings us to the Clapton, if we're already talking about Clapton, right? Mm-hmm. Because like there's a good chance that he may have been playing that fucking psychedelic SG that he's known for playing during Cream, right?
Yeah, he was playing an SG a lot.
But do you remember the one, what I'm talking about? It's all painted up.
Yeah, the painted up crazy one.
Yeah.
He played that guitar a lot.
So what was Keith Richards' Telecaster doing at that same time?
Playing out a tune and awesome.
There we go.
With only 5 strings on.
Yeah. Jimbo, what can you tell us about Macabre?
Well, no, he kind of developed it for, or that thing, and I can't remember if it was that he'd like heard about somebody doing it and he'd kind of just figured it out, or just the string had gotten in his way for what he was trying to write, which was the fucking song that now I can't remember that particular song that Macabre was like kind of first used for. But he
tell people what Macabre is.
It's a Telecaster. It's got 5 strings on it, tuned a certain way so that Keith could get this sound out of it that he used on a pretty fair number of Stones songs. What's his name? That was with Whitney Houston for years and years. Ike Turner. No, Tina Turner. I mean, Well,
Yeah.
but Ike Turner, they were on tour with the Rolling Stones, and he was telling a story about how like Ike Turner was like a real intimidating kind of presence, obviously. And he came up to me and he's like, yeah, and I was sitting in a chair, and he leans over at me, and I had to back away. He leans over at me, he's like, show me how you play that 5-string guitar right now. He's like, I can't. He's like, show me how you play the 5-string. He's yelling at him how to do it. He's like, what do you do with that? How do you tune that? Do that. Just yelling at Keith Richards, poor little Keith Richards.
It looks as if Macabre was a gift from Clapton to Keith Richards.
Oh, there we go.
On his 27th birthday, when the Stones were preparing to work on Exile on Main Street.
Yeah, it was like, it's like the Exile guitar that uses like on a whole lot of that shit.
So you're saying a lot of that early Stone shit is on a 5-string guitar?
Not the early stuff,
but Exile Main Street, that era. Goat Head Suit.
Some, like at least some of it's like the main riffs. There's like overdubs and all kinds of wacky stuff.
Before They Make Me Run, Brown Sugar, Honky Tonk Woman.
Yeah, Honky Tonk Woman and Brown Sugar are the two I was trying to think of that are like the most famous uses of that guitar, definitely.
And that telly, that's that collar. Like if you say telly collar, you know what we're talking about. What is that officially? That yellow? Is it just telly yellow?
Butterscotch.
Yeah,
butterscotch blonde.
And that's the Prince guitar too, the butterscotch blonde.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but his was a Honer or something. It wasn't a Fender.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't a Fender.
I didn't know that.
Fender neck on it?
That's what I'm saying.
I don't think so. I thought it was like some weird off-brand. Could be wrong.
What was that pick guard? It was like that wavy.
It's like, it was like a
tort.
Almost, it was a tort, but it was almost like almost looked like cheetah print or something. It was
right.
Yeah.
Torty.
I was gonna say the Prince telly has the stripe through the body, right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
It's got binding.
it does. Yeah. So and it's more of like a flame maple top. It's got that real pretty like AAA grade wood on the top, whereas Keith's is just like a slab of ash or pine or whatever it is.
Kind of like the Springsteen guitar.
Yeah. Or Vince Gill's Blackguard. God, we could go on a Telecaster haul for
man. Okay. So
yeah, it's a Honer, Mad Cat Honer.
A Metcalf Honer.
The Mad Cat Honer.
Mad Cat.
Telecaster.
I had no clue. And that's the one. Is that the same one that he threw in the fucking crowd at the Hall of Fame?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same one, right?
Yeah.
He had to have a plan. You're not going to throw that thing in the fucking crowd.
Well, there
probably had more than one of them.
There's a guy we're going to talk about that used to throw a very iconic instrument quite a lot.
Yeah, we are. Oh, I can't wait. To talk about
so
him.
Switching back let's get away from electric for a second. There is one on this list that is maybe the most recognizable guitar to guitar players of all time, and that is Willie Nelson's Trigger, the Martin N20 nylon string acoustic.
I got goosebumps when you said the name.
Yeah. That there is still some left of to this day.
Has there been one guy's the only guy that's ever fixed it? There's been like one dude,
except for Shot Jackson, who like did the original thing. Because when Willie got it, it's a '69. It was like first year run, I think. I think they started making the N20s in '69. But he had this Baldwin 800C, and that's like he still uses those same Baldwin amps, like the same ones that he got back then. But
so is Trigger got a pickup in it?
Yes, and he had the Baldwin 800C that he had gotten stepped on in Texas by a drunk and totally smashed. So a couple of Willie's band members sent it to Shot Jackson in Nashville to get it fixed, and he's like, this shit's done. I can't do anything with it. But I've got this other guitar here that I think he'd really like, and it's this Martin nylon string new thing. And then I had to write down what the pickup was called because I couldn't remember. Premise Stone stereo, whatever, but it was the Baldwin pickup system that was like on the saddle. So Willie's like, well, yeah, but I want that pickup system on the Martin. So they just took the bridge off the Martin and put the Baldwin bridge on it. So it's a '69 N20 Martin N20, but with a Baldwin 800C bridge and pickup. And he bought it for like $750 sight unseen, had never seen it, and I mean that's like $5,200 in today.
I was gonna say that's in the 60s, right?
That's a lot of money. I mean he still had that, like, walking after midnight money and all that crazy money. not
early clean shaven money, clean shaven
Yeah.
Willie.
not super rich, but like successful songwriter money. And so he bought that. He bought that guitar and saved it from a fire. And he
Tell that story.
it was Christmas Day '69, like right after he got it, or I think like a few months after he got it. There was a fire at his ranch house, and he like sent somebody to I think as the story went, to somebody to go like hide a bunch of his weed that he'd had stashed in there so the cops wouldn't find it. And then he ran back in and grabbed Trigger and then ran back out, to keep it. But he plays it funny. It's got that big hole in it that everybody knows. It's been fixed up a bunch of times. And now the guy's just like, I don't even bother because it just keeps coming back. It's probably better off as a whole. But
it's signed by a bunch of people too.
Signed
Right?
by a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Well, it's because Willie plays it with a pick, and normally people don't play gut strings with picks, but he plays with picks, and it's his thing. It's part of his sound, and that
he
guitar
beats the tar out of his guitar.
beats the hell out of it. I mean,
That's wonderful.
It's
Yeah, it is.
instantly, and he's got that old fashioned like Spanish or Mexican style strap with the it's got like the hook where it hooks into the sound hole. And it's one of those guitars like we were talking about in the beginning that's instantly identifiable with the guy.
Man.
Like you see Trigger, like, oh, it's Willie Nelson's guitar. And he's talked about it. He's like, if Trigger goes, I'll go. It's
him. It's part of him now.
well, it's got so much of his DNA in it.
I feel like,
yeah.
Like
more,
literally.
more than any other instrument we've talked about, and maybe more than any other instrument we will. That we said when we started out Drunkophiles, we said that we were not going to rank these instruments because it's just a little too much minutia and a little.
I
too
hate
much,
ranking.
Yeah, it's not. But Willie's guitar might be of the ones we're talking about, at least that might be the most iconic, as in like you see that under a spotlight on stage and you know what's happening.
It's like the only guitar he's used since 1969.
And that's why it's because it is an extension of him and his musicality. It's just,
And the only guitar to appear on King of the Hill.
ah.
Yeah, because
right.
Willie, the golfing episode, like he kept having dreams of playing golf with Willie.
Well, Hank's guitar is on there when Hank plays. Like what's the grass is always greener episode. And
Yep.
whenever he jams with Willie.
Yep.
Willie's
Yeah.
play.
That's man, that guitar is him. Like no, I don't think that guitar. If there was ever going to be a guitar put under glass, it might have to be that one, and I might have to go to like the National Museum of America. They have to go to the.
I think you're right about that.
You mean
Now
now
here's-
Sony?
Yeah, that's the one. It's Drunk Uncle Radio.
Yeah.
Adam, what the fuck are you doing?
The American Museum of America,
God damn it.
God damn it!
USA.
I'm drowning sorrows over here, Adam. What are you doing?
So
I'm doing the same
another-
in a funny way.
So here's another piece of American musical history that marked some major innovations. That's Eddie Van Halen's Frankenstrat.
Yeah.
This guy was an electric guitar pioneer in so many ways. I mean, you talk about that old cliche of taking it to the next level. He did it 5, 7, 8, 10 times. It's just insane.
Jimmy said it best in the thread when he was just Eddie going hog with a soldering iron.
Oh yeah, well that's the thing. Like we could get it. You could tell like with some of the things he did. It'd be like if I did it or something. He really had no idea what he was doing. Like with the pots and stuff. He just like wired them in like a real simple circuit. He took off both tone controls. He was just going. He went crazy at it, and it was they were both seconds. Like the body was a second because it had a knot in it, so it was a factory second, and then the neck was a factory second. So he got it real cheap. It was like $150 or something from Wayne Charvel. It was just blanks, and he had like an old PAF, an old patent applied for Gibson humbucker that he stuck in the bridge, and then he had the regular Strat pickup up in the front, and just wired it all like wrong, but it worked for him. He had it was a vinyl record is what was like the pick guard and covered the control cavity.
What?
That he cut out. He eventually put a real pick guard on it, but it was like a vinyl record.
I didn't know that.
He had one of the tone knobs on the volume control. It was like the gaff tape all over it. And eventually he put like Seymour Duncan in it. And then he kind of retired it for a little bit and was using that black and yellow bumblebee guitar.
Do you know where that is? Adam, you know where that is, don't you?
I do.
Wasn't that buried with Dimebag?
Yeah.
Goddamn right.
He said,
Yeah, bumblebee.
he said a true original deserves to be buried with the original.
Goddamn right, man.
And
Shout out both of them, man. I love Vinny.
And that was
I love all of them.
But
Yeah.
we should have talked about, Dimebag.
I'd already planned on the Dime Slime. Don't worry. I got you.
That's that's another guitar we could, that we could have thrown on the Dimebag guitar. I mean, Brian May's guitar we could throw on as one of the most.
We could do man. Hey, man, ain't we all jazz guys here? We can improvise.
Yeah, but the Frankenstrat, the Bumblebee kind of took over, and then he kind of didn't like the Bumblebee very much. It just
didn't become a Kramer later.
Yeah, he like painted it again. He put on I can't remember what kind on the Frankenstrat. He painted it this real funny paint. But he said it gave it pop, so it just made it work. But
in theory, this guitar shouldn't have worked, right? So in theory, there's no way
this shouldn't have worked as well as it did, but it just worked.
One of my favorite Eddie iterations of this guitar was the slightly altered one that he called the Shark.
Oh yeah, the Shark.
Yeah, with the cut in the bottom and the bolt to it.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
cool.
Because wasn't that like a V? Wasn't it like something like a flying V or some shit, or like an Explorer?
It's like an Explorer with a big V cut,
with a big old just jigsaw cut out of the back.
Yeah, but it had that like industrial like clamp bolt
turnbuckle.
Yeah, turnbuckle. That's it. Yeah,
turnbuckles in it.
And that just that. I'm like, that's metal.
That is fucking metal.
Yeah, the Frankenstrat originally had he pulled the whammy bar out of his 58 Strat and put it in the Frankenstrat, and then took that out and then put the Floyd Rose system on it a little bit later, so that it actually stayed in tune whenever he would do his dive bombs, diving down like an octave and a third like he'd do.
The strings going just limp.
Just spaghetti.
Man, you brought up some other ones, man. Didn't Brian May build that?
Yeah, him and his dad built that out of their living room table, I think, or dining table.
Yeah.
No shit.
And they designed the pickups. They made all the pickups themselves.
His dad lathed out the knobs and stuff like that.
It's like literally every single part of that guitar, except for putting on the switches, but every single part of that guitar was made by them.
The fretboard was actually from their fireplace mantle.
No shit.
It was, yeah, something like that.
And that's the guitar Brian May plays. It's just.
So, do you think that he even plays that reproduction?
I'm sure
he has 2 or 3 out on tour with him for different tunings. You remember that, Jim?
Mm-hmm.
But all those big iconic songs, it was the Red Special.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah,
it's the sound is always like the Red Special with that Rangemaster treble boost into an AC30. Although a lot of the recorded sounds were with the amp that bass player John Deacon made, the little tiny 3-watt job.
Go ahead.
It's just this little amp that he built, I think, battery powered, out of a transistor radio, and a lot of those
you could buy it as a plug-in.
Yeah, you can buy it as a plug-in. Vox has sort of made a copy of it before. A lot of private makers make copies of it. But it like a lot of those real high kind of thinnish glass
quartzy sound.
Yeah, that's through it's called the Deaky. Through the Deaky amp that John Deacon built. Because I think John Deacon was also sort of a closet electrical engineer, because Brian was astrophysicist or something like that, or he's a doctor in something astral, and then the Deacon was an electrical engineering student. If I recall right in the comments, you could tell me how stupid I am.
That's an iconic instrument, man. If you go to a concert and you see that motherfucker on stage, you're going to hear sheer heart attack that night.
Oh yeah, and it's if somebody's playing one, it's I better hear something Brian May out of that.
Let's talk about that, because man, Adam, you said you've played with a cat, and we're going to talk about that instrument. Might as well bring it up now. What do you think about playing those iconic instruments? Like you said that you played in bands with cats that were playing that SRV reissue. That's a ballsy move.
Yeah, and there were 2 or 3 guys throughout high school and whatever that would play with those, but it was weird. Like they were fans of listening to Stevie, but then when we played together, they were all like playing like Alice in Chains and Tool and stuff. So it was just like, okay, he's good.
As long as you don't tread on that.
But there's one other guy I played with that played one, and he would always throw in like Stevie Ray tricks here and there, and I was always looking at him like, careful.
Easy, easy guy.
It's a little on the nose.
You're gonna anger old Stevie.
Let's talk about that one. What that's man, that's as iconic as it gets.
Yep.
Is the SRV Strat, man?
The number one.
Number one.
He had quite a few. And
remember the red? Remember he'd play that straight, the cherry red.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever seen the live at El Macombo?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Dude, do you remember? Like he destroys number one.
Mm-hmm.
Just be like he takes it by the whammy bar and is just whipping it around, beats the fuck out of it.
Oh yeah, and then he's like hitting it on the ground and
The tech comes out, gives him his red guitar, and in one song that tech cured that guitar and it came back out for the next song.
That's what's his name that's worked for John Mayer for years.
Oh no shit. John Mayer has SRV's tech.
Yeah,
I mean, John Mayer is an SRV prodigy, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name, but yeah, he worked for SRV for years and years and years, and then he's worked for John Mayer for years and years. But yeah, that number one, I think.
Do you know what the provenance of that is? Do you know if it's like what year?
He always claimed, if I recall, that it was like a 59, but then his tech said that he'd had the body off and it said it was like a 63 and the neck was 62 or vice versa. So it's probably, chances are, in early 60s. I don't know the story about where he got it or anything, but
right. But like some of the things that he did, a bunch of extra shit, like he put in jumbo frets. That wasn't a thing that was in there at
he
first.
put like bass frets in it,
yeah.
and then all
got
those
the reverse tremolo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
is the neck upside down?
No,
not on
He
that.
doesn't have a left hand. Okay,
no,
Not on that one. Had that sticker that says custom. The shiny sticker. Says custom, just so you know.
like you slapped it on a Ford truck. Stuff you made from a catalog.
Mm-hmm. Like J.C. Whitney catalog or
Part
something.
store chrome.
J.C. Whitney catalog.
See what my dad still gets those.
Oh yeah.
And I gotta figure out where I can put a beauty ring on this thing.
You got a bunch of part store chrome on it.
If
Man,
only
he
they were still like that now. It's like, get you some goddamn truck nuts.
Truck nuts.
I gotta get the red sparkle steering wheel.
Oh my God. I haven't thought about J.C. Whitney. I'm sure my dad probably still gets J.C.
My
Whitney
dad
catalog.
still does.
That's amazing.
He's
But
always
yeah, I
for
thought
you.
for some
My
reason, I don't
truck.
know why I thought that, or I must be misremembering that had a left-handed neck on it, but I guess I'm wrong about that.
One of them did, or a couple of them did. He had some tellies too that he used. Not as often.
Ooh,
but every
you
now
know another one, man. If you're old enough to remember when MTV played music, him playing the Dove on Unplugged.
Oh yeah.
That big fat Dove, man. That's a cool guitar.
You remember when it was like pretty junked out Stevie Ray era? He played that one like custom Strat was made by this luthier in Florida. It was like the flame.
And it wasn't contoured, it was like flat.
Yeah, it was a slab, but it was like it had his name and pearl white up the neck, all pretty and everything.
That was a cool guitar.
I kind of hated that.
Oh, really? I thought it was cool.
It didn't sound as good to me. Like,
Well,
it
yeah,
was
I mean
too-
that dude could play a toaster and make it sound good.
Oh no, I mean it still sounded like him, but that one to me just had this like weird. It was just like it was all like the Montreux recording where he played that. It was just like, yeah.
That guitar hadn't suffered enough yet.
No, that's right. They didn't get the shit out of it enough. It didn't have all of his like, bar piss in it and stuff like that.
Cocaine residue on it.
Yeah.
So,
Man, remember that documentary and they were talking about like his pre-show ritual was to throw an 8-ball in a chilled glass of Crown Royal? Trying to catch a head change, bro.
One of my like it's sad, but it's a kind of a funny interview. Whenever you could tell he's just like coke rolling like crazy, and he's giving this interview and he's just like talking about snakes. he just starts going off on like, and he's like, "Hey, can I have a piece of that pizza? Y'all want to?" He starts talking about pizza and then moves to snakes and pistols and like revolvers.
Oh shit!
And stuff. It's like, oh my god, he's gacking.
This man's the blues. This man is living the bruise.
This man is turning blue.
So all of the electric guitars we have talked about so far, as we sort of draw to a close on the guitar category.
And I have another question to add, though. Go ahead.
That's fine. No, I'm sure you'll get it in there. All of the electric guitars we've talked about so far have been essentially of the Fender variety, even though I know you said there was a Charvel that was the Frankenstrat,
Trigger.
but that's the of the electrics. There's one big Gibson on our list, and that's Lucille, BB King's famous ES335. And I think it's only fair that we make sure we include some humbuckers in amongst all these single coils and hybrid guitars.
If I recall, I believe it is a 355 TD-SV.
I thought you would have that.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't a 335.
The SV being that it has the baritone switch, because all the 355s are 355 TDs, and I think the SV was introduced in '59
with the big old chicken head knob on
with
it.
the big chicken head knob. But what's funny about Lucille is that Lucille is really a collection of guitars. There isn't any one Lucille. It was just like all his guitars that he played from that time that he started naming the guitars Lucille, because his he was playing like all kinds of like harmonies and Gibson arch tops and stuff way early on, and then
Tellys too.
Yeah, and the RCA years, the early RCA stuff, it was an Esquire. Even it wasn't even a Telly. It was like
would you call the Esquire like a pre-Telly?
Yeah, it was like a 53 Esquire, and he said that even back then he liked keeping his action really, really low. He's like, I didn't have calluses like other people did. He's like, I liked keeping my stuff as low as humanly possible, which is kind of like the somebody maybe we'll touch on, but like the John Entwistle kind of thing, where, it was almost like I like my strings on the other side of the neck. I like it really, really low. And he used real light gauge strings, but yeah, then he started playing those Gibsons, and he liked the neck a little better. He liked the feel he could get out of it a little better. And I think he liked the Buckers better. But yeah, it was like anytime he named the guitar Lucille, the first one he named it, whichever one it was, he named it Lucille because there were these two guys in a bar that were getting into a fight over a girl named Lucille, and they like knocked over this kerosene lamp and it caught the place on fire, and he ran in and got the guitar. And the story he would tell is like, I named it Lucille so that I'd made sure I'd never did anything as stupid as to get in a fight over a woman or run in and save a guitar ever again.
That's great.
But from then on, every guitar he had would be called Lucille, and it was usually the black 355. Then they had I think 1980 they came out with the signature model. And they did those for years. There was the little Lucille that was like that Gibson Blues Hawk guitar, but it was black and had two P90s in it. Really, really cool guitar.
That's cool.
Was it a single cutaway?
Yeah. It was the same. They like the Blues Hawks were kind of this like, I think you could get them in blue and maroon.
Yep.
And, but it was like a little single cutaway, like single, like single cutaway, like a solid body guitar. Yeah. They're really cool. If you look them up, they're really cool looking.
This one's got this. They made them with F holes too. This is semi hollow. Yeah.
Well, and that was the thing about his signature models anyways. He always asked not to have F holes to stop feedback problems. He didn't want feedback. Because he kind of played kind of loud because he played with real light gauge strings and a light touch. So he wanted to be able to get a lot of gain.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Man, one of my ZZ Top guitars.
Pearly Gates.
Is that what it's called?
That's his number one Les Paul.
Really?
It's supposed to be one of like the best examples of a Les Paul ever done. Like the top is phenomenal.
You know who Jimi Hendrix used to always say was his favorite guitar player?
Oh, yeah, Billy Gibbons.
Every time he went to Texas, he was like, let's go find Billy Gibbons. And that was pre-ZZ Top.
Well, now, like, or at least in the last few years, the rig he has set up, it's like a MIDI rig where they've programmed in the sound like for pearly gates, sort of into the Marshall digital machine. And so every guitar he plugs in goes through this processor that makes it sound a little bit more like pearly gates.
That works because every drum on Frank Beard's drum set is triggered to high heavens.
Oh, yeah.
You haven't heard a real drum sound out of Frank in a long time. I've seen him twice over the last 10 years. And that's
like hearing gunshots.
Well, but the best part is Frank's, because, man, let's be honest, man, Frank did not take care of himself. And as a drummer, man, it's a physical instrument. If you don't take care of yourself, a la Peter Criss, man, your shit goes downhill because it's a physical instrument. So you'll see Frank just be like, but you'll hear crack.
Yeah. I've seen, I got to see, well, I used to work with Blackberry Smoke, and they toured with ZZ Top a lot. So I took my dad to see them at Ascend Amphitheater here in Nashville. And
I was with you for that one. I remember.
Oh, yeah, you were. We went backstage afterwards and we're hanging out with the Blackberry Smoke guys, but like that, when you were hearing ZZ Top out there and then you walk out front, drums are like actual like fucking large caliber guns on a fucking battleship.
He's going.
I've seen ZZ Top like 5 times.
Have I seen him with you? Did we go see him once?
I don't remember. The coolest one I went to, they opened for Tom Petty one time. That was really cool.
And then Pop.
But the coolest show I went to was ZZ Top at the Keith Albee.
I was at that show. So we were there.
And they were doing all these like weird deep cuts and stuff, like going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
they like did stuff. They were like, we hadn't done this song in 30 years or something. Like, oh God.
Man, as much as, as big as ZZ Top is, I still say they're underrated.
Very underrated.
God damn, man, those first couple records, Fandango, those are classics, man. Those are
Tejas.
Oh, yes. Man, that shit's so good. Man.
Tres Hombres.
Yes, that's what I was trying to think of. Since we're talking about 355s, and man, we got to talk about Chuck Berry's 335.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what like was rock and roll created on a Gibson ES 335.
A lot of it. I mean, I guess it's like you can't really pinpoint any single moment and say that's
right.
when rock and roll started.
Obviously,
because you could talk about Rock Around the Clock and all that, and that was a big hollow body Gibson, I believe, like real big, like a
Birdland,
like a Super 400 or Birdland or something.
Oh no, yeah,
like
big thick jazz box,
big guitar, and but I mean,
used too.
Yeah, he used a Birdland.
Yeah,
he's a funny one to talk about, like not to diverge from Chuck Berry to talk about Ted Nugent, but it's
he'd be so happy. He'd be so happy that you said that.
But yeah, like he's another guy. Like his tech, I think was talking about it. Like he played with those Fender amps, but like those special like 200-watt Fender super bassmans or whatever they were, like the crazy high watt bassmans or whatever they're called. And like 200-watt Fender amps, just cranked all to bejesus with that F-hole open body, deep body Birdland guitar. And he's like, I can't not get this thing to feedback. It's all it does. He's like, as soon as Ted comes out and starts playing it, it doesn't squawk once. He just knows how to work it, knows how to use it. But yeah, Chuck Berry, the 350 to the 335. That's that red 335. It's
Duck walking across the stage.
Yeah, it's up there with the Beatles moments, like a lot of those guitar players talk about the first time they heard Chuck Berry or the first time they saw Chuck Berry. I mean, how many Angus Young and all these guys, how many guys did that guy holding that guitar inspire, or at least a version of that guitar? He would play other stuff sometimes, but not much.
What do you think is an iconic Beatles guitar? not the bass, obviously.
Oh,
Is
the
it the
Ricks.
Casino?
Yeah, the Ricks.
Well, that's an Epiphone, but yeah, the Ricks definitely was the 360s,
and Lennon's 325.
the 325.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between the two?
With the Rickenbacker, it gets so minute. That's above my head. It's like it's like trim and what knob
Depth
it has.
of body.
Depth of body. I mean, it's like Gibson, but
Yeah.
I don't know as much about the Rickenbackers.
Okay.
It looks
Sure.
like the 325 is a semi-hollow. And
okay.
and the 360s that's the 3-speed, the 3 pickups. Slightly smaller body.
Mhm.
So which one would you think of Tom Petty playing then?
360.
Well, and the one that that guitar was actually what is it? The one that looked like the 4001, because they wanted one that was like the Beatles Rickenbacker is what they called it. Him and Mike Campbell, they wanted one, but they couldn't find one.
660.
Yeah, the 660, but they found this one, and it actually wound up being like just a few guitars apart from Harrison's, so it still had a cool sort of relationship to it, but it was a different guitar. Like that guitar was used. That Ricky, which isn't one of the Beatles Rickies, is sort of. I mean, it's iconic in its own sense.
And he had that in 6 and in 12.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Man, there's nothing better sounding than a 12-string Rickenbacker.
And there's a reason that I only recently, when I was researching turning one of these hulks of guitars that I have lying around, just turning it into an electric 12-string. There's a reason. Ricks, they have their strings to where when you come down on them with your pick, you hit the big string first. Most 12 strings, you hit the octave strings before you hit the normal guitar strings.
Right.
At least for the first 4 courses as you're coming down on it. And Ricks are reversed so that all of your pick energy hits into that big string first. So it's got a way bigger, thicker, richer sound.
So that's why it's such a signature sound of the Rickenbacker 12.
I mean, that and the pickups, the pickups make a big difference too. But yeah, I feel like from the articulation, it's not so much the tone of the guitar, but it's the way it responds musically.
Okay.
It's like the birds sound.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Roger
McGuinn.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah, they had Rickenbackers some of them have like a funny comb thing too that goes on kind of back by the bridge, back by the saddle, and you could take the silencer, but you could take it and it like pulls the high strings out of the way, and it's supposed to turn it into like a regular 6-string guitar, and it only kind of works.
I was gonna say
I've played a couple with it, and it's really uncomfortable and awkward. It's not a very good idea. It's cool. It's like I get it. It kind of works, but it really also doesn't at all. It works like it does exactly what it says, but it doesn't do what it says it's going to do.
It pulls the neck up just a little bit, so it makes all the regular strings go a little bit flat.
Yeah, it's like it pulls the high strings out of the way, like it says, but then it just like gets them in your way, and the guitar gets really uncomfortable and awkward to play, and it gets even more out of tune.
So those of you listening along and following along with us here, let us know what we missed. Let us know what iconic players and guitars that you're really angry at us for not knowing a whole lot about, and telling us all about here in the comments. Let us know what's up.
The Prince Cloud guitar.
The one, what is it?
The Prince Cloud guitar.
The sign.
Yeah.
Is that what it was called?
The white one. Yeah.
The white
squiggly.
One.
Okay. Well, what I was going to ask, and we haven't really talked about a lot of Gibsons. All of you all, really, you can tell that you are all Fender people with the things that we talked about. What I wanted to ask was, it's such an iconic guitar. Who do you think of when you think of iconic Les Paul players? Who is your first person that you think about when you think Les Paul player?
Dickie Betts.
Yes, that's mine.
Rose.
Row.
Man, Slash brought him back. Slash brought him back. Like in the fucking 80s, it was all shredder, butt rock guitars. It's all, and if you notice, there's not an Ibanez on this fucking list. I guess we could have said Steve Vai. We could say the 777 or whatever.
Or we can mention Sting when we get to that. With
we kind of talked about an Explorer. That I guess that was
yeah, it's another Gibson.
Oh, right,
but yeah, it
true.
seemed like, man, those Slash should probably own stock in Gibson because those were gone.
He's got, I think, the number 1 burst Les
No
Paul.
shit.
Because they had the number 2, I think the second burst Les Paul ever made over here at Carter for a while. But I think he's got number 1. He's got a lot of big money guitars, like collectible.
He should, because nobody was playing Les Pauls in the 80s, man. Everybody was playing butt rock shit, man. Like that's the he brought the Les Paul. But you're right, John. That's who I think of. And I think of Les Paul. I think of a gold top, Dickie Betts and Dwayne.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Jimmy, who do you think of when you think of a Les Paul?
I mean, yeah, Dickie, but the first person always pops into my head is Billy Gibbons.
Pearly Gates.
But it's kind of funny though too, because he played Telecasters a whole lot.
Mm-hmm. And didn't he play telly basses too?
Are you talking about Dusty?
Yeah.
Oh, he played like a 51 style, not like a telly bass. He did have a couple telly basses, but he's more known for the 51 like Stings, like the straight.
Yeah, with that pick guard to take up the whole.
Yeah, and it's got the Telecaster profile on the headstock, so often that gets called a telly bass.
And then he started getting a lot of the ones that had like the 57 split style, like you're used to seeing with P basses, but then in that 51 style body, just kind of like his signatures. His signatures like that. He's got one of the coolest signature basses, I think. It comes in black or like a gold, but it's kind of beat up relic a bit, but it's got that like 57 pickup in it, and it's just clean. There's no pick guard, there's no nothing, no holes, just tone knob, volume knob, pickup, neck. It's just real clean, but real classy, but equally like sweaty. Like it's when you like it's like seeing like a very, very I don't know how to say it. It's like seeing like a sweaty supermodel or something, you know. It's just like it works in strange ways.
Suspiciously specific.
No shit.
Yeah, it's just like a simple, strange but classy beauty, but also sweaty and covered in grime.
I mean,
Irene.
Yes.
And if we're going to talk about like signature looks, we got to talk about Zakk Wylde's Les Paul.
Mm-hmm.
We got to talk about Randy Rhodes,
Ace Frehley's 3 pickup special.
Yeah,
Les
buddy,
Paul.
that blew up, son. Had fireworks and shit in it.
He'd have spinning fireworks. He'd shoot rockets out of it. He'd sing "Shock Me" with it.
Shock me, John. Before we go to bass, man, you got to swing to your song, bro. We got to put that song in there.
So we're trying to, for you, the people, and for us, the musicians in need of an outlet, we're trying to once a week make sure that the Drunk Uncles appear as their alter ego in Slate Dump, as the band that never was, the greatest band of all time, where we play any number of instruments and cover songs. You know, we've been trying to do something that sort of lines up with each episode so far. But since there's not really one, it's kind of hard to pin it down to one song for iconic instruments. We decided to go with an original song, and we are now going to play for you a song of mine that I don't know what category it falls into. It might be iconic someday. We'll see. But this is a little train song, little train beat called Squeak Wheel Squeak, brought to you by Slate Dump. 1, 2, 3. Squeak wheel squeak. Squeak wheel squeak. Weep, wheel weep. Go ahead and cry yourself to sleep. Cry, oh baby, cry. Tell us how you just about to die. Yeah, it sounds like your bearings wearing out. What's it gonna be? Sure, you've been wrong, running down this track for oh so long. Still, oh still it's true, that's just what a wheel's supposed to do. There's a voice inside you that's crying out, and it's telling you, squeak, wheel squeak. You're the only one who needs the grease. Listening to you all day long while this train keeps rolling on. Gonna squeak, wheel squeak. Come on now, Jimbo. That you finish crying out, or are you gonna squeak, squeak, yes, a wheel squeak. 'Cause you're the only one who needs a grease. Listening to you all day long while this train keeps rolling on. You're gonna squeak, wheel squeak. Sick of listening to you all day long while this train keeps rolling on. You're gonna squeak, wheel squeak. You're gonna squeak, wheel squeak.
Yeah, that was nice. Nice. Anyway, I know that earlier in the episode we mentioned that we whittled this list down to keep it to one episode. Well, let me tell you, as the editor, it was looking over 3 hours. So I'm making the decision to cut it into 2 episodes. With next week, we'll be coming back with all of our favorite, the electric bass. So stick around, and, well, actually don't stick around, because that's a whole week away. There's lots of stuff for you to do till then, chores and jobs and whatnot. So have a great week. Thank you for your support, the few and mighty, and we'll see you next week. Take care.